My previous video about the Abyss sibling mentioned a very fascinating book that was allegedly supposed to hold secrets the Order wanted. This book was featured in Lisa's story quest and has been a subject of heavy dissection in the lore community for many years to come. This book is known as The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies, Volume 1. And today, I'm going to give my alternative interpretation and why I believe this book is about the Seelie Kingdom. Disclaimer. Unlike other theories, I have several disclaimers for this video since the nature of the Six Pygmies analyses are inherently flawed from the very beginning. We have little to no information about the books, and the books themselves aren't even released for proper speculation. Just these rough summaries in the game, which are one-sentence liners. I didn't read the data-mined versions of these books since I don't really like taking unconfirmed and unpublished sources that are subjected to change, lest we have the Thoma Ayaka fiancé incident. And this book came out years ago. So while I say this is a theory, this is more so just an alternative reading and my own take on the Six Pygmies story with the newer bits of information we have. But it is by no means indicative of any final product. I'd also like to preface this theory that the book is most likely not a one-to-one interpretation of any Genshin historical information, since it's a fairy tale and it's allegorical. Additionally, the basis of this video is the fact that Hoyo likes to sprinkle in these fairy tales are sometimes rooted in the truth, which is a flimsy model in and of itself. Nevertheless, I still think it's fun to dissect this book because I've got these left behind pieces from the previous video, and I think it'd be pretty neato. Now, before I begin with the actual theory, I wanted to show you the many evolutions of the Six Pygmies analyses because if you're part of the Genshin lore community, or really just the community in general, you've most likely heard about this mysterious book from Lisa's story quest. What makes the conversation about the Six Pygmies book is the historical meta-context behind it from a fandom perspective, which is super fascinating. This one volume, or if you data mine the other books, which fun fact isn't even available anymore, has been scrutinized so heavily that there are just so many interpretations about it that fly around Reddit, YouTube, and Twitter. Some people perceive it as the Six Archons, some Celestia, some the Abyss sibling, some even the Traveler. So let's begin with my interpretation of the background. The series of The Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies follows a 7-volume collection with only one book currently confirmed and available in the main game. The word Pygmies from the title refers to a group of people whose average height is unusually short. In Greek mythology, however, the word describes a tribe of dwarves and were reputed to live in India and south of modern-day Ethiopia. Now, I'd like to preface this section by saying that this is from Wikipedia, but let's save this definition for future use. The first volume talks about how a Night Mother ruled over the faraway land of Night, a land where no light touched the earth and no tree grew. The Night Mother was the source of all sins, and the land of Night was the embodiment of her evils. However, the Moonlight Forest was the only place free from the rule of the Night Mother, and was the only place isolated from the abhorrent creatures lurking at the edge of the forest. As for the second and 7th volumes, we get the following summaries. A pale princess meets someone known as the Light Prince. The Pale Princess and the Light Prince have a decision to save the Moonlight Forest. The two meet with characters known as the Six Pygmies. The Six Pygmies have a sinister scheme and are able to implement their nefarious plot. And the conclusion in which the Night Mother tells a prophecy. So let's begin with the theorizing part. I believe that this story is a tale about a Seelie maiden and her lover during the pre-Archon War cataclysm that destroyed their kingdom. I also believe that the allegories about the Night Mother and the Land of Night are about the two realms of existence, namely the Void Realm and the Light Realm. So let's begin. The first claim is that the Night Mother and the Land of the Night are of the Abyss, or at least the Dark Sea. In the current Genshin mythos, the Dark Sea is a barren wasteland where the remnants of old gods and monsters lingered outside of the Eyes of the Seven. It is unknown if the Dark Sea is directly connected to the Abyss, but with Enkanamiya's presence, it's a common belief that the Dark Sea is a precursor to the deeper Abyss, almost like an outer layer of some sorts. This means that the Night Mother could easily be the true ruler of the Abyss, a completely antithetical entity to Celestia. It is important to note though that I think that the Night Mother is a divine abyssal entity and not a Conrian creature like the Abyss Order. I actually believe that the Night Mother is much more primordial in nature, and could even predate the Archons that we know today. This could also be representative of the monsters in general lurking in the Dark Sea. Now we go back to the description of the Land of Night. The book describes it as a place where there is no life, a lack of sunlight, and a forest filled with abhorrent creatures lurking at the edge of the forest. This reminds me of a certain barren wasteland mentioned in another book known as A Drunkard's Tale. The barren wasteland is described to have open plains, abandoned ruins, and the domains of monsters and the Seelie kingdom. The wasteland is a cruel place, and is said to be a land beyond the dominion of the deities, inhabited only by grotesque, ghostly remains of fallen gods, where the former palaces of the Seelie now stand empty. Which further cements the next claim that the Moonlight Forest is about the Seelie kingdom. The Moonlight Forest in the book is the only place where people bask in the bright moonlight and enjoy the grace it brought to the living. Everyone in the kingdom of the Moonlight Forest was born with fair skin, light-colored hair, and bright blue eyes. Compare this with other descriptions of the Seelie kingdom in other sources. Seelies haven't always looked like the wisps we see in game. Seelies were once known as beautiful. According to Arama in the World Quest for the Children of the Past, the Seelies were a great race with wisdom and beauty beyond the pale of this earth. They traveled the Nara and taught Nara languages and the philosophy of nature. Seelies are just empty husks that race left behind. This is because they were born with a curse. If they fell in love with Nara, they shall lose their intelligence and strength, and their bodies will regress. This is further supported by the book called The Records of Jueyun, where the Seelies were called beautiful. The Drunkard's Tale also talks about a woman in the kingdom of the Seelie mourning over a sarcophagus. She was found in a great palace and her skin was ashen white. It's also fascinating to note that the Seelie kingdom has connections to the three Moon Sisters, which makes this theorized connection all the more concrete. Returning to the Pale Princess book, the reason I believe the Moonlight Forest is this old civilization is because this place is described to be different compared to the other monsters that lurked at the edge of the forest, similar to how the Seelie kingdom once flourished in a land now filled with nothing. But now we move on to the next claim, where the events of the book took place before the Archon War and during the invasion of the Descenders. This is the part of the book where I believe that the storytellers begin inserting creative integrity. This brings us to the titular characters that are almost impossible to really pinpoint, but we can most certainly try. First is the Pale Princess and the Light Prince. I believe that the Pale Princess is inspired by the Seelie from the Records of Jueyun, who fell in love with the Traveler from Afar. The Traveler from Afar potentially being the Light Prince. I also believe that the Light Prince is a creature from the elemental light realm, or potentially a descender and invader of some sort. According to the book Record of Jueyun, the ancestor of the Seelie met a traveler from afar, with whom they swore an oath of union witnessed by the three sisters of the Lunar Palace, Arya, Sonnet, and Canon. Just 30 days later, however, a sudden disaster struck. The Seelie and their lover fled into exile as the world collapsed around them, fleeing until the terrible calamity caught up with them and seized them. This also aligns with what the Goddess of Flowers says about her ancestors and the invaders beyond the firmament. But in time, invaders descended from beyond the firmament, bringing with them destruction, overturning rivers, spreading plagues. And though the invaders brought war to my former kin, they also brought about illusions that could break through shackles to the land. But the Master of the Heavens, consumed by fear for the rising tide of delusion and breakthroughs, sent down the divine nails to mend the land, laying waste to the mortal realm. So now that we have those, we can move on to the Pale Princess and the Light Princess's decision to save the Moonlight Forest. This would go in line with the fact that there may have been a catastrophe, but much like the original history, they were never able to save their kingdom. The 6 Pygmies are unknown characters that have a weird role here, all things considered, but what's important is that they end up boiling a sinister scheme that was successful. Contrary to popular belief, I actually don't think it's too important to put a definitive label on who the 6 Pygmies are in the grand scheme of Genshin's history, whether they're specifically ancient gods or Seelies or celestial entities. What I find more important is what their sinister scheme is and who it is directed to. It's never explicitly stated if the Pygmies betrayed the Pale Princess and the Light Prince, but that their schemes were successful. It's actually never confirmed if the 6 Pygmies were even allies of the Pale Princess, and I have no idea if that's the case because I haven't really looked at the data mined formation of these books. So if I were to dissect this, A part of me believes that the 6 Pygmies might have been representative of powerful divine entities that ended up furthering the ruin of the Seelie kingdom. Whether these are the 4 Shades and their master, or even the 3 Moon Sisters who ended up fighting amongst each other, the 6 Pygmies represent the divine powers that ended up sealing the fates of the Pale Princess, the Light Prince, and the rest of the Moonlight Forest. Because in the end of the story, the tale circles back to the Night Mother's prophecy, meaning they eventually had to return to the Land of Night and confront her. As for the real conclusion of the Seelie who fell in love, the records of Jueyun state that the Seelie and her lover were punished to be separated from each other for eternity, and to have their memories wiped without a trace. Almost reflective of the passage in the first volume, in which the cruel Night Mother, who had neither heart nor mouth, was always watching the Land of Night, and her punishments were always unexpected. One last final note that I wanted to share is that I find it fascinating that Lisa lets us borrow the book as a custodian, especially after finding out that the Abyss Mage wants it for a secret. She knows that the Traveler is curious about it, so what if this is her way of letting the Traveler find the secrets of the book? Her own special way of safeguarding the book from potential threats. Any direct attacks towards the book will instead have to go through the Traveler. It's also possible that Lisa knows that the Traveler would have better context of the book, considering they're traveling the whole of Tevat, rather than just herself who is living in Mondstadt. Regardless, Lisa definitely has great insight that the book will eventually carry the secrets of Tevat, and that the Traveler will eventually need to uncover its allegorical secrets. Though I wonder, for all the 2 years that it's been out, where the 2nd to 7th volumes are. Now for the counter-arguments to this theory. It'd be irresponsible of me not to talk about the counterclaims to this theory, because there really is a bunch of information that is inconsistent. First is the role of the 3 Moon Sisters who had a deep correlation with the Seelie Kingdom if the legends are to be believed. They were there when the calamity allegedly occurred. Now, is it possible that the 6 Pygmies are an allegory to the 3 Moon Sisters? Maybe. Anything goes, honestly, considering that the 3 Moon Sisters fell because they allegedly turned against each other, leading to their eternal parting. It could be possible that the nefarious plan is the fighting amongst the 3 Moon Sisters. The second one is that there is no concrete evidence that a calamity pertained in the fairy tales that brought ruin to the Seelie Kingdom was inherently caused by descenders. The strongest evidence we have that supports this, though, is that the Goddess of Flowers recounts a time where the descenders came as invaders. The Goddess of Flowers descended from the Seelies, or was a known successor of the civilization, so there may be a correlation, but again, we're not really sure. The third is that we don't know if the creatures from the Light Realm are known as descenders or invaders. We also know that the Barren Wastelands monsters are said to be remnants of fallen gods, which wouldn't really align with the time frame we put for this theory that the book was before the Archon War. To be fair though, there are monsters that predate the Archons, so those can easily just be that. The fourth is that because of the lack of information, it's really impossible to say what in the world the 6 Pygmies are, and there's no sure way of really connecting any of these pieces. Fairy tales are allegorical, and that's what makes them difficult to dissect, but fun nevertheless. These could all just be red herrings, and honestly, that's fine. The Book of the Pale Princess and the 6 Pygmies is a really fascinating take on the many faces of a theory and just how deep the lore rabbit hole can go. And that's the beauty of theory making and speculation. Just throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks. Anyway, my name is Aster and thank you for chilling with me. In Greek mythology, however, the word describes a Speak, Aster! Fucking! Oh, I made myself laugh. In Greek mythology, however, the word describes a tribe of Oh man!